Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wa bihi nasta'in ala umurid dunya waddin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil mursalin nabiyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yaumiddin. Amma ba'd. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dear all, today we're going to discuss a little bit about Tawarruq. As we know that Tawarruq is a name that synonym to the Islamic banking today. Okay, the Islamic banking operation, Islamic banking financing, Islamic banking deposit, and a few more products that offered by the Islamic banks to the community. Okay, so basically, as we know that Tawarruq is something that is introduced to mesh against the conventional banking, whereas the conventional banking, conventional banks, they are doing the loans and deposit based on the lending principle, which is the principle is granted to the customer and need to be repaid with interest. Okay, so from the Sharia perspective, this interest actually is construed as a riba, which is prohibited by Sharia. So therefore, when Islamic banks, they are set up to function as the financial intermediaries between the depositors at the liability side, and also to give the financing as an asset side to fund a project, business, and also the personal needs. So there is some mechanism that need to overcome the situation. Whereas, as we know that from the conventional practice that using the riba-based transaction, which is not allowable. So this is very tough to the Islamic banks, and a great challenge when we want to doing the Islamic banking activity, and also set up the system which is to match against the conventional bank. Okay, which is very dominant not only in the local market but also globally. Okay, so back to discussion, what is actually the Tawarruq means? Tawarruq means a person, or we call it in Arabic as a mustawrid, who wants the money. Okay, who wants the money to obtain how they want to obtain the cash, instead of they doing the involved into the lending activity, which is involving riba or interest, and it is prohibited in Islam. Okay, actually the word Tawarruq itself, it comes from the word of tawarruq, or the origin term is the al-waraq or al-warid or al-warqu, and few more has been discussed by the early scholars. It also mentioned in the Quran when Allah said in the Surah Al-Kahfi about the Ashabul Kahfi, when they get up from their long sleep and they thought among themselves, then they said, "Fab'athu ahadakum biwarikikum hadhihi ilal madidah." Okay, ila akhir ayat. So it means that send one of them to the cities by having this money. Okay, so waraq means money. So this person, he or she wants the money for their personal needs. So this is the classical example. So what happened? What going to do? They go to the merchant or the trader, then they ask for a commodity or a goods, or today we call it as an asset. Okay, so they're asking to buy an asset from the traders with the deferred price. Okay, so the trader may have the stock, or they may need to get from the supplier for that stock, obtain that stock and sell it to this person on deferred basis. Okay, or normally in Islamic finance today we call it a buy mu'ajjal or buy mu'arabahah or musawamah, etc. Buy in a deferred basis, which they need to pay, that person need to pay later. So what happened, once the person get the asset or the goods or the commodity, they goes to another traders in the market and sell it for the cash on the spot basis. We sell it in spot basis and to obtain the cash. so that the cash proceed is considered what we call it as a waraq just now. So that's why all this arrangement become, we call it as a tawarruq, means to obtain the cash proceeds. Okay, so if you look from the mechanism perspective, there's minimum two transaction of sale and purchase, or it could be a three sale and purchase transaction. But if you match against the conventional banking, how they do it, so the lending, the substance, the objective is also to get the cash, alright, to get the cash proceeds, but they are involving with the riba transaction, the interest based on those things. So in other words, we say the substance is just similar between the conventional lending and also the tawarruq based financing. But when come to the form of transaction, it is different because the tawarruq is using the sale based transaction, but the conventional lending is using the loan based transaction, which is based on the interest. So some people, they may argue this is just similar to the lending because the substance is just similar. But if you look in the Quran, what Allah said in the Quran on the ayat to riba, and Allah said, ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَالُوا إِنَّمَا الْبَيْعُ مِثْلُ الرِّبَا وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. Okay, so it means that they say, means they refer to the Jahiliyah people during the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They say sale and purchase is just similar to the loan because they look from the substance perspective. They didn't look from the form perspective, whereas there is a transaction of sale that require a certain element, certain risk benefit to be borne by either the seller or the purchaser. Unlike the loan is solely using the principle of money generates money. Okay. So then Allah emphasized that wa halallahu bai'a wa harrama riba. Then Allah permits the sale and purchase but prohibits the riba because of the attributes, how it is conducted and how it is managed. Alright. So that is one part to differentiate between the tawarruq based financing and also the interest-based loan or lending in the conventional finance. So this is basically the main difference between the conventional system and the Islamic finance system, whereby the Sharia compliance is the utmost requirement to be adhered. So in Islamic finance, we really uphold the Sharia principle and value in that sense. Okay, so basically, if we look back from that, the mechanism or the structure of the tawarruq-based financing or deposit, okay, how to go into the detail, differentiate between this kind of mechanism with the conventional lending, we go back to the structure or the theory of the contract. Okay, so basically three parts here: the contracting parties, the subject matter, and offer and acceptance. Okay, so the difference first, the contract parties is just similar between the bank and also the customer for both conventional banking and also the Islamic banking. But when it comes to the subject matter, like I said just now, is a little bit different, where the conventional banking is purely on the loan, giving the principal amount of money and expected the rebate together with the interest or any fees or charges on top of that principal, which is altogether is considered as a riba from the Sharia perspective. Whereas in the Islamic banking, they have the sale and purchase transaction, so they need to take the economic effect, the similar economic effect, but when it comes to the mechanism itself, it need to take the attributes of the sale and purchase transaction, which is they need to have the seller and purchaser, the asset, the risk of the asset, the benefit of it, and etc. So that is in terms of the subject matter, and also in terms of the pricing. So for the sale and purchase, they need to have the commodity pricing, commodity price, they need to have the profit, they need to have the cost price, all those things. Unlike the conventional, they only have the principal and also interest. Okay, so that is another difference. And the last one is in terms of the form of the contract itself, which is the offer and acceptance. The offer acceptance, which is under the conventional banking, they only have the, for example, the lending or loan means the offer acceptance on the basis of loan, which is I give you money, then you need to repay back with interest. Okay, but the form of the contract for the Islamic banking, for example, the financing, so the contract itself need to reflect the requirement of that mechanism, which is the sale and purchase. So there is the offer to sell or offer to purchase, and on the other side, on the other hand, will be the acceptance for the purchase or acceptance to sell. And together with all the parameters, the pricing need to be disclosed, all those things. So basically, that is the main distinction to differentiate how the Islamic banking that using the Tawarruq-based financing is differentiate from the conventional lending. Okay, so if you look now in today's modern system, financial system, this Tawarruq-based instruments is widely used in the banking and also part of the takaful when they do investment fund, all those things, and also widely used in the sukuk. Okay, because sukuk, we know that we need to match against the bond market, so we need to ensure that the credit risk is mitigated, all those things. So actually, this is the mechanism that used to address the issue from the risk perspective. Okay, so if you look into that, maybe we may argue that this is just similar, the substance is similar to the conventional banking. So it assumes the credit risk, which is like a typical or traditional or conventional banking. Okay, the way that they do the transaction, become intermediaries, taking deposit and giving loan, etc. Okay, but we might say this is the best solution that we have today for us to gradually develop the Islamic banking system. We are not able to left everything, and at the end of the day, we don't even have the Islamic banking. So we need to go to conventional banking. That is in totality is prohibited by the Sharia. But when it comes to the, of course, there could be some operational issue or those things and become leads to the shubha or something like that. But it is something that we need to improve from time to time, or we say in Arabic as tadarruj, to islah bitadarruj, something like that. Okay, so basically, in other words, what we might conclude from here, right? Why we question for the long-term solution? We want to something like having like an equity-based mudarabah, wakalah, musyarakah to be developed in the Islamic banking system. But at the same time, we also need to have a tactical solution to overcome the situation. So one of the solution that we have today is using the Tawarruq-based instrument. But on the other hand, we also need to we need to put in mind that it is not a very liberal usage of the Tawarruq. We also need to control the utilization. We all need to observe the parameters, need to fulfill the sale and purchase parameters, all those things, so that it fulfill the Sharia requirement. So it will reflect the real transaction of the trading and not merely artificial. Okay, so basically, this is a few minutes that I can share with everybody about the Tawarruq. So I think that's it for now. Then I close this few minutes session with the wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.